Our next two speakers are from Australia. They're from Conrad Gargett, and they're both going to talk about different parts of the Lady Cilento Hospital. It will be very interesting to see, because the project was up for a Future Health Project Award in the Academy Awards in 2013. So it will be really good to see how it has turned out. So first I'd like to invite Ian Mitchell to the stage for his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola, and I'd like to thank the Academy for inviting us to present this project. So thank you for the invitation. Conrad Gargett's first major hospital building was in 1927. This has been a significant sector for the practice ever since. In 2007, we established the Conrad Gargett Lions joint venture for this project, and we were jointly responsible for the architecture, the health planning, the interiors and urban design for this new public paediatric facility. Commissioning occurred in late 2014, so it's been in operation for a bit less than a year. I'll just do a quick sort of contextual thing of what's happening in Australia. It's one of three major paediatric facilities either recently delivered or under construction. In fact, there's been a significant spend in new tertiary and quaternary health facilities in Australia in the last 5 years, and the largest single one is in the Greenfield Hospital in the Northern Corridor from Brisbane at the Sunshine Coast, which is being procured in a PPP or public-private partnership arrangement to a master plan that we prepared some years ago. But the first in the sequence of the three children's hospitals in Melbourne, and you've all seen this one because I think it was the subject of numerous Academy Awards. It features, as many new hospitals do, a large naturally lit atrium to help organise the planning, the circulation and provide a less institutional environment. Currently under construction, due for completion in 2017, is the Children's Hospital in Perth. A similar scheme in many ways. It uses a large single atrium to create an internal armature for the building, lots of glass and plenty of light. Returning to Queensland, and this, the new Children's Hospital, which is now named the Lady Cilento Children's Hospital.
Of a hub, a network of care across the state. It's the linchpin, but each element of that system of care is critical, from the community services through the regional secondary providers through to the teaching tertiary hospital that is the QCH. The QCH will reach out across the state, be that through outreach clinics, telehealth, or in fact for the sickest children retrieval services, to ensure that every child, no matter where they are in Queensland, has access to the very, very best care.
So it's the hub of a very large network. I might just ask you to turn the volume down on the videos, if you don't mind. The hospital, while serving a large network throughout Queensland, is about 20 minutes walk from the CBD of the city. It's adjacent to the large Mater Hospital campus, which is both public and private, and two schools, and a major recreational park, the South Bank Parklands, for any of you who've been to Brisbane. It's very much an urban hospital in a tightly occupied environment with all the constraints of a brownfield site, busy roads, high pedestrian traffic and dense infrastructure. It's a very large building project, and there are many statistics that can be drawn from it, from the throughput of the emergency department to the number of meals served and so on, you can see there. Regardless of the statistics, and there have been a very large number of large hospitals delivered worldwide in the past few years, and many can be considered unique. But the most common response to this building at South Bank is that for a hospital it looks different. The form, the colour, the apertures, the changes in the urban environment. And this is how the public has kind of responded to it. We'll look at how the design evolved, some of the key drivers and the final outcome now that it's in operation. This reflects our approach originally in bidding the project, which was the desire to deliver a more appropriate building type for a children's hospital. Not different from the general functioning of a hospital, but So addressing all of the functional needs, but somehow creating a more appropriate hospital for children. A large tertiary hospital on a standalone facility reflecting key functional relationships, efficient clinical planning as required by hospitals, logical circulation with an efficient net to gross. However, our contention was that it would not be, like many, a sealed box. Our approach was for a child and family-friendly building, more normal, less institutional environment, and a much more connected and open building. It was a philosophy we'd been developing for some time, and here was our opportunity to put it into practice. Our vision was for a new type of facility, open, connected to community, both physically and visually, permeable. For us, this was critical. Patients, particularly children, should not feel as though they've been taken out of their family and community, put in a sealed box and made to feel isolated and different. Fortunately for us, these were jointly held philosophies of our client and across our design, and I might say construction and procurement team, everybody got it. Continually reinforced through extensive consultation and research. Brisbane's climate helps. Today in midwinter in Brisbane, it'll be 20 degrees, sunny, and with a humidity at about 48%, I think. Overnight it was a cool 8 degrees, so all of these factors allow us to open the building to the outside. Returning to the site, the actual site that we were master planning on was significant. The brief included a research facility, a central energy facility, carers accommodation, critical enabling works, as well as the main children's hospital. The major elements of this master plan have now been delivered. The hospital at more than 100,000 square metres, 20,000 square metre research building, and a central energy plant as well as the enabling works. And these are them in their context. A car park, raising a school's playing fields to campus level, the hospital, the central energy facility planned for the entire site, restoration of an existing bank building as the charitable hospital foundation, the site for carers accommodation, which is currently under construction, the new plaza, and a reconfigured intersection. Designing the hospital started with a master plan for this larger project, but it was the envisioning of what the hospital represented as a healing environment happening in parallel that was to inform the look and feel of the building. Elements fundamental of the development were the concepts of connectivity and permeability, clearly demonstrated in this image. It was in the early workshops where the nature of the building was identified. So this was about a month or two into the project. This is a summary sheet of one of the early workshops with about 100 participants. It was a given that the detailed clinical requirements would be met. So whatever happened, it was going to be a functional hospital. But there were more aspirational and somewhat less tangible notions, ideas like making a big hospital feel small that had a lot of resonance, a legible campus, a building for the Queensland climate, and you can see there, not like a hospital. So we'd reached a kind of shared and cohesive vision. Not like a hospital in many ways, but certainly a building focused on healing. Spaces for all aspects of healing. This is just one aspect of that. Places for engagement with activities far removed from the reasons for being there in the first place. It was this aspect of not a hospital that continued to inform the design, yet it was very much a research-based project. Being a relatively small country, Australian architects instinctively look beyond our local experience. In fact, our small size could be considered an advantage. We tend to examine what the rest of the world's doing. Conferences like this, study tours, research. And given the significance of this project, we also engaged a full-time researcher to expand the conversation with our stakeholders. Ensuring we had the best possible buy-in from all of the stakeholders was also critical. User group meetings peaked in the middle of the developed design, and they were crucial. We had large forum workshops, largely in the early phases of the project. These were inclusive of all departments, some quite dynamic. A number of town hall presentations and interactive work sessions. So the community was involved in this process. And design presentations, from master planning to colour selections, art engagement growing towards the end of the design development period. as more and more detailed decisions were made. The sheer number and intensity of user group meetings at over 500 underpins ownership of the design. What worked best, and I'll just mention the top 5. There's a whole separate discussion on this kind of exhaustive consultation process. The process which was aimed at engaging a vertical cross-section of stakeholders through the workshop series to combine cultures, universal aspirations and master planning principles. Early user groups were arranged into 5 value streams with 8 support planning teams for focus on services rather than the familiar departmental culture. Consultation was function-based and process rather than room-based. It was supported by governance consistently throughout the project, and there were standards groups set up to examine benchmarks and standards, which there was some discussion about earlier in this conference. In the process, all aspects of planning for this building were rethought. There were feasibility studies and comparative analysis for every conceivable aspect, a consultation process delivering planning that promoted a more collegiate approach. So this was scratching away at some of those silos one finds in all professions and certainly have been discussed here during this conference. The patient journey for different types of stays was reviewed for efficiency as well as for patient focus and examined for ways to reduce stress levels. This was critical in the process of healing, making the intervention as effective as possible. This came out more and more in our research that environment really does have an impact on healing. Everything about being a hospital was re-examined in a highly consultative and constructive environment. So while the process was focusing largely on clinical planning, the aspects of connectedness and permeability were also being examined in the context of the city, and the hospital as part of a larger picture of health and research facilities across the city, connected from Royal Brisbane Hospital to the University of Queensland in the south, a distance of 9 kilometres. A hospital in context of the city and its immediate neighbours and connected to the city and to its surroundings, one that where connection is depicted from above, where the spine of South Bank Parklands, the arbour terminates, but then links through to the civic plaza of the hospital and the hospital itself connected to the adjacent health facilities and pedestrian networks. But back to the smaller canvas, the connected, permeable hospital. There's always one defining idea, and for architects this is often a sketch. So this was about being able to see in and to see out of the hospital, connecting it to its environment. The form of the planning emerges from the principles of circulation and connection, designing and planning the circulation spaces with the same care as the clinical departments. This block planning, obviously not yet showing the departmental planning, focuses on public spaces, orientation and circulation. Principles of permeability start linking through the site, both across and longitudinally. You can see the importance of this from the earliest drawings, concepts eventually realised in the final planning. As the plan develops, those principles are reinforced through the design of the public zone, here shown in green internally and beige covered external space, noting how the ground floor is pulled back under the building to create a kind of veranda, which is a very traditional Queensland thing, to invite pedestrian flow and connectivity. And on the ground plane, the 3 main entries make use of the undercover edge to emphasise these points of access. They also provided protective space for the hospital community as well as the local community, enhancing public amenity. Access is demonstrated over these 2 levels of the ground plane emergency and main entry, noting that the edge structure is designed to accommodate pedestrian movement, shelter and protection from the traffic environment. Cafe and plaza are shared between the hospital and the community, the approach to permeability and connectivity influencing the building form at the ground plane. This is a sort of rudimentary CAD model, and we used a lot of this during the process to convey what we were trying to get at. They're very simple tools, but much more useful in describing the essence of the building than plan and section. And this is that same view in operation. This is the Stanley Street entrance adjacent to emergency, which is a very heavily trafficked road, connected up then to the main entrance via escalators. The covered space under the building's edge provides that sort of sheltered environment, around 3 sides of the building, shelter and a filter from the traffic. 3 points of entry, all leading to the central point within the building and paths of circulation, all connected directly to the new civic open space. Slightly complicated diagram trying to express connectivity around the precinct. The Stanley Street emergency drop-off linked through the building to the quieter main entrance on the other side and taking up the grade separation across the site. There's also links to the South Bank parklands together with anticipated interaction with adjacent school pedestrian traffic. One gets the feeling of a normal environment for patients and their families, all as part of the community. This is the plaza at the connection to the parklands, school children heading past in the new civic space that forms the South Bank corner. In the picture is a large opening that aligns with the view back to the city. You can see that right in the centre of the picture. Another group of students on their way to the school passed through the forecourt and actually in and through the ground plane of the hospital. The cafe situated above the plaza is an attractor and overlooks the play area as well as the wide stepped area leading down to this place. The public circulation and gathering spaces have other significant uses and also explain why this building looks and feels different. Although a deep plan building with a complex arrangement of clinical spaces, it has a public realm that's open and welcoming. Public circulation extends through the external face of the building to enhance the idea of connection. The vertical linkages via the atria at nodes in the circulation space start to be realised in these early planning diagrams. The public spaces of the building, one can see, will be visible to the community. Navigation through the hospital will rely on, but will be intuitive, aided by the views to the outside for orientation, an open building allowing people to connect from inside to outside and outside to in. So this is part of making the building more easily navigable in this, is this armature of the building. This is a model of the public circulation in the building. Earlier in the planning, these were referred to as the arteries or anatomy of the buildings. We've since referred to them in a kind of tree analogy as trunks and branches. Trunks for the vertical atria, and branches, the two-storey horizontal space. Mapping this public volume has led to a different planning outcome. These are the trunks and branches in relationship to the building as a whole. The circulation is also expressed through the skin of the building. And you can see here an early model, block model. Branch ends are prominent and visible and promote connection, again, making this hospital a different entity to other contemporary health facilities. And these apertures are large enough to be read in the urban scale. They give life inside to outside and outside to inside. The branches also aid in getting natural light and air into the building. These are the branch ends as they emerge through the facade on the main arterial side of the building. The double height giving these apertures appropriate scale and allowing the penetration of light deep into the plan. While similar in their nature, all branches are driven by the particular requirements of the internal functions and are therefore different in configuration. The degree of enclosure differs, as does the predominant angle of view, usually oriented towards a landmark, again, reinforcing that navigation. The importance here is not just being able to see out, but to be able to see in. The art and public areas within are quite visible. This is a branch of the South Bank corner looking towards the city. In an added function, this space is very much part of the arts program, supporting all manner of performance, from dance to trapeze, from concerts to painting. And they're also available to those who can't get there via the patient entertainment system, so you can see what's happening from your bed. From the branch, it's just a short walk to the centre of the hospital, an interior infused with natural light and colour. These public spaces are also naturally ventilated. They're decidedly child-friendly, and they don't necessarily look like a hospital. This is the main reception. The light comes deep into the interior from both branch ends and vertically, as I said earlier. This approach is facilitated by the way the building is assembled, not as a traditional urban podium and tower, but a new model with a different form evolving. The form in stepping back provides the facility or the opportunity for making more of the roof space, providing gardens for differing functions. From the dense urban side, we've extracted a whole series of gardens, and my colleague Katarina will talk to you about the landscape architecture in detail. It's a critical component of the integrated design of this facility. Some of the gardens are designed to stimulate active participation, others absorption in the materiality of the ever-present green. Which is a nice segue into the colours of the building. This is one of the many colour schemes which was universally chosen and developed for the application on the facade. The main building is protected from the sun by a series of fins that wrap around the building, a combination of vertical and horizontal blades. They protect from heat load, but also use the top of the horizontal blades to reflect light deeper into the building. You can see there the colours of the building are reflected from the context and reflected in the facade, so it's a very interesting outcome. Whilst there is a richness and playfulness in the building, it's also mirrored internally in the arts program. These are the open spaces where the great opportunity for arts is exploited. Not only enlivening the spaces, but giving some proven therapeutic benefit, distraction, refocusing attention from anxiety. These are the major pieces of art in their concept phase, and these are them in the building. So the light-filled atria are alive with both visual arts and sounds. Here a family of parrots occupies the space. Vitrines throughout the building are replenished on an ongoing basis by in this case, the Queensland Museum. But the arts program is not just about art on the walls, it's about performance. So the public spaces, I think I'm getting the wind up, all sorts of activities. This is the building in the context of the city. The building as we saw it at the end of the design phase. The building as it is, commissioned and in operation. It's attracted a lot of attention and it's become a kind of very important landmark in the city. So this is a building that celebrates its climate, its openness, both from research and through thorough consultation processes have informed the design and hence the outcome. A long process in focused design and planning leads to an increasing body of knowledge which can now inform the planning of other projects that we're delivering. So I'd like again to thank the Academy for the opportunity of presenting this building. Thank you.